I know it's supposed to capture our attention, but I'm not 100% sold on that. You're passionate, like I don't know if that's a selling point here. What did you actually do to find out the issues? I mean, it's great that you come in with results, but you got to talk a little bit about your methodology. So the first thing I want to know from you is,
Lennart, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first thing that came to mind is Apple product introduction. It's got, the flow of whenever Apple announces new product, we have the animations and everything. It just kind of feels very producty, which is not necessarily, the focus to me isn't necessarily on the portfolio, because once we scroll past this Kariva portfolio piece where it says coming soon and we get into that purple, then everything after really feels like, okay, now you're going to present an iPhone or something like that, which is like, the animations are beautiful, but the question really is, what's the purpose of this, right? Like at the end he leaves us with are you ready to get started? So it's like a nice call to action, but like if I'm a recruiter, if I'm interested in hiring that person, is that really where I want to be left off? Is that really the right call for action for me? So that being said, I really liked the project pieces, or the project. I do have, I think I just broke it because I scrolled back up. And if you scroll, so just try scrolling a little bit too fast through the
we can go back up.
Pieces. It starts doing that Z
that weird
fighting.
Yeah.
Where does that's a JavaScript thing, I think.
Like any other pieces of feedback that you'd throw to Trevor's way, Lennart?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to start drinking very soon because we're definitely checking some of those boxes there. But other than that, one of the things, so aesthetic-wise, I think it looks really beautiful. It's really great. I am personally on the fence of gradients. I know it's kind of hip these days to do a gradient. I don't know if on the Hi, I'm Trevor, if I would do a gradient there, because I would want that to be more of a bold statement. I know he's got the little shadow effect with the font there, but I think it's just too much going on right away with the gradient and the shadow and everything. I know it's supposed to capture our attention, but I'm not 100% sold on that. And the last thing, I do not like it when the resume is separate. I know it's hard to update this stuff. It's easier to update it in a Word document or in a Google Doc and then render it into a PDF. But I personally think it's a little bit lazy if that's not integrated somehow. Even just the basics, right? You can still have a link, download full CV or whatever, but I would at least have, some of the bits of the expertise on the Webflow page and not separate in a PDF. But that's mostly personal preference for me.
Totally. Yeah, I'm 100% with you on the gradient here, because part of the problem is like view projects is the primary button, and the gradient and the color of get results take away from view projects and get results almost looks like it could be interactive, since that color of view projects is the one thing that's interactive. And so I think the color below of like the map and like base Montana, that's totally fine. Like that doesn't take away from it because it's so muted. But I'm with you on that. I think that if that was just black or a gray of some kind for everything else, and then like the view projects is that is primary, I think that would be much better. Yeah, if you scroll down, Ludovic, one thing I was going to say is, first of all, cheers. There's definitely the word passionate as you scroll down, as he describes who he is. So
I can't even go back up. I wish. Okay, whatever.
I feel like I should take a double drink for that. When he says a little bit about me, and the next thing is actually 2 more sips for each of us, because
I'm
well, we're past that, because if you scroll down even more to the next one down, for that, the dog one, that is not accessible even at its first. I checked
this one.
That one too. There's actually 2 of them that aren't. The yellow.
Oh, and this one too. You mean?
No. The blue. The blue one and the yellow one are both not accessible. And so, like that's something that's super important.
Cheers.
Cheers to both of those.
Okay.
But overall,
what we mean by not accessible is that like the color contrast is not high enough, which means that the foreground color and the background color are just too close to each other in contrast, and so some people won't be able to perceive it. We can see it. I mean, I can see it. I don't know on your end, but I can see it. But a lot of people will have a hard time reading this text.
Yeah. So overall, I think it looks really good. Like I think the layout and the way that he has the visual design on this is clearly solid. There's like some small things to change. Like, for example, instead of leading with Silver Paw Dog, which is probably the name of the company, or I would lead with what the project was, and then have like the company be something else that's like, you know, describing this. And then like I like the description and view case study, and each of the mock-ups that he's using to you know, show each case study looks good. I think overall like the transitions between color looks nice. I'm 100% with you on the things below with the kind of product-y feel of like, is this necessary? Like the animation shows that he could be good at that, which is displaying something.
Yeah.
Which is
This
cool.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Is this necessary? Is like my question. Like it
Right.
looks good, but it and it shows that he can make this sort of thing, which is cool. But it's like, is this helping? Hard to say.
Right.
But I'm with you on the
Yeah,
call to
absolutely.
action as well. Like it's not quite clear. It's like, let's get in touch. Is like, already get started. It feels like you're starting a product versus like, hey, do you want to talk to me about any upcoming projects? Like that feels like a better sign off.
Yeah.
Ludovic, any
Are
last
you
thoughts?
ready to hire me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ready to-
Yeah.
Like,
Let's talk first. But yeah, actually, there was something, I don't know if you guys noticed, but see, like there is a hover
Oh,
interaction
I meant to
here
say
for
that.
coming soon, but it leads nowhere. And then on the actual one where there should be a hover, there is none. You know, so I was like, this is too bad that it's just completely inverted. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Lennart, what would you give this on a scale of 1 to 5?
I would say this is, for me, it's somewhat between good and solid. I think first impression was solid, but then I found all these little things, so I'm leaning more towards good. It is a very good piece. On the aesthetic side, definitely solid. In terms of, you know, these functionality issues and just overall planning, I'd say more good. So if we're looking at a really, you know, standout portfolio piece, I would say good. 3 stars.
Nice. Ludovic.
Yeah, I think the thing that bothers me the most is that I can't even go back to the hero section. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to, and I really want to display it. But yeah, that's for me, like, I almost wanted to give a mate just for that, but just for the sake of being fair. I think it's a good. It's a few things can be done to push it further. The positioning up top, if I could scroll back, could be a little bit improved because it's a bit general. But other than that, I mean, it showcases some know-how, and I can see it pretty quickly. I can understand at a glance what's happening in these projects. Again, I think this is a bit unnecessary, like you guys said. So I think good is fine, yeah, for this.
Yeah, I'm somewhere between a good and a solid. I think, like for all the reasons you both pointed out, I think the serious usability problem of not being able to go back up to the top is not a good thing. Like, I would thank you for calling out the hover states, Ludovic. That's something that I meant to mention. But the thing is like, this is so close to being Kickass. It is so close.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a few tweaks that need to be changed. And like, to be honest, this animation could totally change because it does make him stand out. Like, there's things that, like, I don't see this on most portfolios. I just think that like the message it's conveying isn't quite right. And that is more of the problem. It's not necessarily the animation. Like, I would tell him to keep the animation, but just craft something different for it. But like, I'll give it a 3, but with like very few tweaks, I think it could be a Kickass like real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly like the accessibility stuff, the hover states, the usability issues, and like a couple of small tweaks here and there. So great job, Trevor. I do think this is really, really close. Cool. Well, then it's time for our first palette cleanser, which is that question we were talking about, like the in between. So the first one that we'll have, which I think is super fun, is what advice would you give to someone on their portfolio if you did not want them to get a job?
That's a tough one. If you do not want them to get a job, I would say definitely overuse colors and fonts on the hero section if I wanted something visually that just ticks people right off. And then the other thing is make non-functional links, like what we've seen with some of those buttons. Like, every button needs to lead somewhere, every link needs to lead somewhere, even if it's just a splash or something. Like, there needs to be something behind those. Those are functional items of a website, so never hide a functional item or never make a functional item non-functional on a website. That's like
so Trevor is not getting the job then.
He's not getting the job unless he puts something behind those links. No. But so close, like we said, right? Like, those are easy fixes, so easy to fix. so easy to make that happen.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Well then, Literally, why don't you throw 2 minutes back on the clock? Let's look at the about page.
A few moments later.
Lennart, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll do a review sandwich here. I'll start with something positive, something negative, and then something positive again. So the first positive thing is, of course, the rounded corners on the photo. We got what I consider a delighter, which is a little smiley on the top right. Such a delightful little thing to take away the edginess of this. Of course, the photo itself shows him in action with his favorite outdoor activity. I'm a big biker myself, so something like this would make me forget about the non-functional links and think, oh, maybe there's something there. We could jive on a personal level here. So I think that's all very positive for me. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about the copy. One of the things that always gets me right away, and that's also because, I run a writing course, so I'm very much focused on writing. And one of the things, when I see somebody do a heading and then just do random capitalization and not camel case or even just like capitalize each word, I get a little bit weirded out. So I know that there's no hard and fast rules, but if you start capitalizing, I would probably capitalize each word, because this almost looks like German, where in German you have some words that are capital and other words are not. But like there's actually rules. In English, you don't have those rules, so you got to have something unified here. So a little about me, I would capitalize everything in that sentence. Personally. Outside of work, I probably, I don't have as much trouble with 2-letter words. So like a and off and like 1 or 2-letter words, I would be okay if those are not capitalized. But anything longer than 2 letters, I would probably capitalize. I know I'm being very pedantic here, but that's like a pet peeve of mine.
It matters. Those details matter.
And then another thing is, in terms of repetition, you got to be careful if you're repeating stuff. Like in the first sentence, you're saying you're a UX designer with over 5 years of experience. And then in the second paragraph, working as a freelance UX designer for 5+ years is where I gained valuable skills. So, this is an obvious contrast you're throwing in there. First, you have a repetition of the 5+ years, but then you introduced us to you being a seasoned UX designer where I have certain preconceptions. If you read any of Nick Fine's posts on LinkedIn, you'd be like, oh, this is what a senior UX designer looks like. So that's what I'd be thinking when somebody says senior designer, but then you're saying you're freelance for 5+ years. So that kind of, that's not the same as a senior or a seasoned UX designer, in my opinion. So you got to be careful to qualify yourself in a correct way. You don't want to over advertise or, worst case scenario, even fake sell yourself with an experience that you don't have. So if you haven't actually worked for a bigger company or something like that, just be clear about that right away. It's not a showstopper or anything, but it is a bit weird when you're saying seasoned and then you're just kind of doing freelance work for 5 years. It's not the same thing, so got to be careful of how you present yourself there.
So a few things that I wanted to add to what you said. I think everything you said so far, Lennart, is just on point. And I feel like from all of this could go almost. Like I feel like it's just saying things that are very UX related anyway. It's not like there is anything crazy about identifying pain points or developing creative solutions, right? This is just plain UX, right? And then cross-functional teams, sure. The only thing that is actually good, like you mentioned, is being a great communicator. That's not the case for everyone, right? You could be a UX designer and do all of the stuff that he talked about here, problem solving, all that stuff, but can you communicate it clearly? That's maybe a good thing to bring out. But otherwise it feels like I'm just learning about what UX is here, right? And I already know that. So it's like, can I please have something a bit more differentiated? And if not, then I think that this helps me connect with him so much better. And I feel like seeing a picture of him, like you said, like the little smiley face. It's almost like I want to see this inverted, where it talks less about design here and more about who is outside of work, and make it more personable, more fun, more poppy. And I think other than that, it's decent. I think I would just add maybe a few more pictures, add more text to support those pictures, stuff like that. Like, tell me who you are outside, because the About Me page is the only page where you can actually showcase your personality. Every other page will show your work, right? So this is the one place where you can tie it all together, but be less work heavy, less design heavy. That's one of the recommendations I have for him.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely agree with everything you both have said. I think this is super valuable feedback for Trevor. One thing I do want to say is we all need to take a sip. I checked the contrast, and that red-ish, pink, salmon, if you will, is definitely not accessible. So,
all right. Cheers.
So I think, and I checked it actually on his homepage, and it's the same one, just wanted to be sure, but the color of the button also wasn't accessible either on this homepage, the primary. I was wondering if it was, and it's not. So just like those small things, I definitely think add up. It's one of those, like why aren't you considering this accessibility? It's not that hard just to add a little bit extra contrast to make sure that it's visible, and it's something that I think most hiring managers now are very savvy to, and will be looking for that stuff, and that can quickly disqualify you. So again, not big tweaks. From what I'm hearing from you both, and completely agree, it's show you more personality, cut out unnecessary stuff, be very clear about who you are, and then to fix some of these visual stuff we're talking about, and a couple errors with grammatical / capitalization, all that stuff. And I think this would be a fantastic about page. It wouldn't take a lot.
No, it wouldn't.
Cool. So Lennart, what would you give Trevor for a rating on his about page?
I'd actually say this is a solid about page. I do agree that it's a little bit too generic. But that's to me the difference between solid and Kickass. It really stand out if you infused it with personality, but really it is slightly above most of the about pages that I see, and there is enough to like here. There's actually a lot to like about this about page. So I think it's a good job. It's brief, not over the top. You got the lighter and everything. It's a good about page, so definitely solid.
Nice. Ludovik, what about you, man?
You know what? I was just thinking as you were talking, I feel like if you remove the rounded corners here, you remove the little face, and you remove this text, it's not the same feeling. I would just go from, I think I would say between good and solid is my rating. And if you remove this and this, which is barely anything, I think it would be a good. It's crazy, but the small little details,
Nice. Yeah, I'm right there with both of you. I think I'm somewhere between a good and a solid, and I think what would bring this to a Kickass for me would be just more personality, and maybe even more pictures of him doing things that he cares about, showing more of what makes Trevor a Trevor. I want to see more of that.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, next palette cleanser. Would you rather work with the world's best product manager and the world's most mediocre developer, or the world's most mediocre product manager and the world's best developer?
That's easy. World's best developer.
That was easy.
I think you can get a lot done if you know how to do things. I think the world's best manager, I think it's probably because I know a lot of management myself, so for me it's just I usually have deficiencies on the dev side of things, so yeah, just on a personal level I feel like that is that's a no-brainer for me. I also have worked in many environments where I guess if you have a great manager they wouldn't manage something to death, but I've also definitely seen a lot of over-managed UX projects where there was more management than was needed. So I think sometimes it's good to stay lean and just build stuff and get quick user feedback and keep building and iterating stuff.
Nice. I love it. Okay, well, let's hop into the first case study that he has on there, because I think that's one he wants us to look at first. So we'll hop in there, throw 5 minutes on the clock, Ludovik, and then we'll all come back in 5 minutes and we'll put 15 on the clock.
All right.
A few moments later.
So Lennart, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so first of all, again, at first sight, a clean presentation of things. There's a lot of content here, which is good. I do like at the very end that there's reflections. I'm always looking when students hand in portfolios, I always remind them, hey, I want a reflection bit. Actually, most of the exercises in my UX courses, they have to write reflections. It's part of the job. It's usually also the end of their presentation is a quick reflection on the project. I do want to see what impact it had on them. So that's a big positive for me. One of the things that's a clear negative right away is when the overview is just on the app. I mean, this is a portfolio piece. So the first thing I want to know from you is, what did you do? And I still am not 100% sure what all he did. I don't like it when folks just list their roles, and then in this case we've got all these roles. So we've got team lead, data analysis, UX design, UI design, and then we've got processes and tools, and they're not really connected. what tools were you using in what role, and like how much did you like. And as you all know, like just putting a role even in your CV, that's not good enough for most recruiters. Like they want to know, what did you actually do? Not, okay, UX design, UI design can be 10,000 things. So what part of that did you actually do? Did you build the prototypes in Figma? And of course, as we scroll through this, we see this later, and that's kind of nice. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed this, but that very first, so under the role duration process tools table, that very first MacBook screenshot, it actually scrolls inside the MacBook. Yep. So when your cursor is over the MacBook, I thought that was
scroll, it just catches it. Yep.
Yeah, just if you hold the cursor in front, it actually scrolls inside of that iframe or whatever it is. That was that was kind of cool. I like that.
Oh, and actually, I didn't realize this until now. It actually is a carousel. Yeah. If you click on the right arrow, it'll show you different parts. I didn't realize that. I didn't even know.
Yeah. And they're all scrollable through the MacBook. Yeah. So that's kind of a neat little thing. I like that. So for me, as a UX research guy, the description of user testing UX research was just insufficient. You gotta talk a little bit about methodology, specifically when he goes into user testing. He pretty much just like, okay, these were the issues. So like, what did you actually do to find out the issues? I mean, it's great that you come in with results, but you got to talk a little bit about your methodology. It's the different types of user tests that you can run, different types of study designs here. Like, did you just do an observation? Did you do any interviews? Like, sure, you asked some questions, you say, before that, but like, it's just not clear how that was designed. And I'm a sort of methods person, so I'd like to see a methodological breakdown when we talk about the UX research bits. So that was insufficient for me. I did like the key takeaway. I do think there's a little, like I've been just trying to look at the page. There's something going on with the fonts here. Like there's, I think, 10 different font sizes that are being used. And it's just like minor differences, like half a point or something like that. Or there's different spacing between the characters, but there's something strange. Like the fonts are definitely not unique. It looks a little bit like a ransom letter at times. It's just too many different font sizes here.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That might have just been a setting somewhere that can be turned off in Webflow, but that really kind of took me off guard. And one of the tips that I always give my students when it is like that, so I really like people emphasizing key points, but to me, bold fonts are overused. And if you do it in a lot of running text, I always recommend to use the mark tag, because with the mark HTML tag, you usually get a nice highlight, and you can CSS style that, of course. And I usually say, like, just make it look like a marker, just make it look like a highlight. It looks so much nicer than to just bold font it, because there's just too many bold fonts here. We've got the bold fonts in the titles, and then all these little bold fonts in there. I think there's a lot that could have been done with just a mark tag and a nice CSS that makes that just a little bit of a subtle highlight instead of such a big highlight. But I'll stop there for now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the bold fonts it's a good move, though, from a hierarchy standpoint. It's true that, if it's too overdone, then it doesn't make any sense, especially, like just one word like this in instrumental. It's like, well, what can I take away? If I were to just scan very quickly and read just the bolded points, am I able to follow the story or not? Right now, it would just be instrumental, user needs, colors incredible, sure, okay, okay. Great. Well, but right, it's not really critical, but there are places where he does it where it's much better, like, let's see, visualize the screen layout, play around different concepts. At a glance, can we understand what happened if we don't read anything that is not bolded, right? That's kind of
go up to user testing. To user testing, that one's pretty good. Like his bold on user testing right there. It's actually saying
yes.
Like
exactly.
That actually makes sense. If you read that, you're like, oh, that's actually. But what's confusing about that is he doesn't tell you how many people he tested with, and so it's like more than half of what? Did you talk to 4 people? Hard to know. Anyway, back to you, man.
Yeah, no, that's anyway. So another thing that I had in mind is like there is this top nav that then changes, which I think is cool. It's kind of a sticky thing right here, but if I'm all the way like down there and I want to go back home real quick, I can't. Like there is no way for me to do that. I have to scroll potentially a lot and then finally go back here and then it's finally interactable, right? It's not the same nav, obviously, but I think that you could, through some sort of interaction, add some sort of back button or home button here or somewhere. Maybe sticky at the bottom, something, right? Where can I go back to the original locations quickly? Right now, the answer is no, and that's a big problem from a navigation standpoint. And then I think what you mentioned, Lennart, is it's kind of weird. Like sometimes these fonts are a bit bigger, but not by much. The bolding is kind of inconsistent, but overall, I mean, I feel like I'm able to get a grasp on the story, and there is maybe a little bit too much text. One piece of feedback that I have in terms of for your text, Trevor, is these sections here, they're way too wide. It's like watching a tennis game. I know it's Roland Garros these days, the French Open, which I absolutely love, and I feel just like that right now when I have to go from left to right. It's just so much work. So if you can make it so that they're only like 65 to 70 characters per line, that makes the legibility so much better. But sometimes you do it just right? Like I think maybe that might be the max. It's actually still a bit too wide. So I would watch out for your layout and for your text length, paragraph length, bolding, making sure that it's always useful and not just one word like here. But overall, I feel like I'm getting a grasp on the story. I'm seeing that there was actual developer handoff. It feels like this project went through. It didn't feel like a student project. So that was good.
For sure. To add to, I agree with both of you. I think this is awesome. I think for me, there's just a bunch of small things that add up over time that made it feel off. So for example, right there where you're at, your Deb had handoff, like the layout there is super odd. Like you have these really wide layouts and you have these really thin layouts, and like the text is all over the place in a lot of places, and it's really confusing as far as like what's going on. And so like if you scroll down from there or up, it doesn't matter. You're going to find sections where, I guess it'll be up from there because the images, like where, like that right here, challenge and solution. You have this massive image on the right that doesn't even fit in the screen.
Oh, here? This one?
That's fine. Wireframe, like it's much bigger, but
right
like these
there.
Massive pictures that like are related to one thing of text, and it just feels really, really odd to me. It doesn't fit. But just overall, which kind of leads to the feedback of overall layout. The overall layout of this thing feels really inconsistent. Because like at first, when you're at the top, it's like it feels really good. Like to your point, Lennart, like the hero section looks good. Like the blue looks good, even though it's not accessible, which we already knew. It looks good though. Like it feels pretty good. You feel like you're going to get something pretty good. And the overview section, I think, is okay. It's a little bit wordy. In the second paragraph of the top section of the overview is not necessary. But like, and then, as you continue to scroll down, like, okay, I feel pretty good about like the final prototype he put up there. It looks solid. Like the final design of this looks good. But then
this
once
one
you
right here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Any and all of that. Like, it looks good.
This is good.
Yeah, it looks really good. So like all of that for the most part is pretty good. The only critique I'd say, other than what I've said so far, is like the role duration process tools in the overview section. Like the random indentation is like, why did you do that for like team lead, data analysis, duration? It's like a random indentation. It should be left aligned. So with that left aligned piece of feedback, everything he's done so far, with the exception of overview, is left aligned. And so like, to me, the headers should all be left aligned. Like overview should be left aligned, and because everything has this consistent left aligned feeling. And so if you continue downwards, you get to research, that should be left aligned, in my opinion. And then, I think create a consistent boundary of your content with exceptions like the kickoff call, competitive analysis. That could be a full width thing, but like if you're just going to have text, it should have a consistent boundary down the page. So then like that image is just way too big, like for that section. And then you have the client questions, like text is all over the place. And it kind of it's all of those things that add up to make this feel not great to me. I get a sense of the story going on, but for me, it's hard to know, to your point, Lennart, what he actually did and what was his contribution. Like, was the final visual design his? Like, there were 4 designers. Like, who did that? Who did that portion? Like, what can I expect from you if I were to hire you? Like, what could you do for me? And then the last thing I'll say before I'll hand it off to one of you is at the sketches section. That was a red flag to me because he said that he did sketches, but they're wireframes. Those are not sketches. Yeah. So I was like, what are you talking about, sketches? So,
digital sketches.
Yeah, digital sketch. Like, sure, but like it looks way too polished to be a sketch. And like, I know people who use their iPads to do sketches, and it doesn't, even though like there's some perfect lines in there, it's clearly a sketch. So yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for me. Would you guys like to finish it off?
Yeah, Lennart, feel free.
One of the things I just wanted to add, because we did when we scrolled into mobile, and
yes.
I think it kind of relates to what Colton already said. This idea, like for me, it's when I teach the CRAP principles, from Robin Patricia Williams, the contrast of repetition, alignment, and proximity. That's really what gets completely out of whack, right? Like proximity is off on the sides, right? Like things are too close. The contrast is off when it comes to resizing, restructuring. Alignment is off. That's what Colton earlier said. Like we just need clear lines, clear structures. And yes, left align is much easier to read, so that would be the default I would go with. Repetition, proximity, like all of these things are off. The biggest thing I think here is the images being trapped in tables somehow. Like you always want to, if you have a fluid layout, you always want to make sure that if you have a table, it shifts over, right? So the row on the right side kind of goes on the top side, and then the image scales instead of you just shrinking the table, which is what's currently happening.
Most images are gone at this point. Look at it. There's no more. Yeah, if you're on mobile, you can see the work.
Lennart, what would you give this for a rating?
This is somewhere between meh and good for me. Definitely good in terms of content, but there are just too many issues with layout. I think it's just the detail is massive, and once you have that much content, you really have to think about how do I present the content on the page that I'm still telling a story. And I think while Ludovic definitely said the story is still there, I think we get lost too often during the story, so it's just too disjointed for me to stay with good. So I'd probably be more on the mess side here. I think there's a lot that can be improved just to tell the story in a coherent way. And sometimes it's all about copywriting too. Like, do you even need all this text to tell the story, right? Like sometimes just show that image, have one punchy line, and move on to the next bit, right? Like it's maybe too much detail at some pieces here.
Right.
Totally.
I couldn't say it any better. I have to say, I would say the exact same words if I could. So I will say also a meh. I think that the layout really kills it. It kills the story. There is some storytelling. It's there. We can tell. We can tell that he did the work. We don't know exactly what part of the work. So like the story is kind of incomplete in parts. But yet it's there. It's not like it's completely absent or it feels artificial. It feels like it was a real project. Yet, like we said, like too much disconnect between things. The layout takes me out of the story. It's not responsive, so I'm like, well, does he know his mobile or responsive layouts? Like, like I have a lot of questions in my mind right now. If the layout was good, I think that we could quickly jump to a good or a good plus, but it takes too much away from it.
Yeah, when we talked to Michael Rittering, aka Rid, he put it really, really well, and it's something that I've always thought about, but he described it really well, which is like your portfolio should be providing a clear statement of what you offer, and it should be answering questions. Like if you walk away with more questions than answers, then that's a serious problem. And so I think you both are actually being remarkably nice. Or I'm being extra harsh. I would provide this a 1-star and needs an overhaul, but I don't think it would take that much to fix to get up to good, solid Kickass. I think there's a lot, like you guys already touched on a lot. Layout would be a big part of this. Text / fonts need to be fixed. But for me, the reason it's a 1 is because I am unsure what he did for this versus other people.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
I have no idea what he did. And so I'm walking away with like way more questions about what he actually did versus others. And then that plus the other issues, like that is why I would say it's a 1-star. Like there's a lot more that, again, I don't think it'd take that much to fix, but until he fixes that stuff like that, those are some serious issues for me. We have one more question for you, and then would love to hear more about something else, but the last question is, what would be your number 1 tip for folks looking to get into the gaming side of UX?
So the biggest tip for people wanting to get into the UX of games is to acquire domain knowledge first. I think that's usually the biggest thing holding people back. If you have a lot of domain knowledge about UX, you definitely, this is like good advice, you want to play games, right? So you want to play a lot of games. and really look at how it's done differently there. Specifically two things, specifically when you're looking at design. So the community is still not 100% clear on the differences between what it means to do UX design, as in the design of just the menus and the HUDs in the game, so just the interface bit of it. And then when does it become game design? Because to me, that's an important, that's sometimes like a blurry distinction too, because in the outside part of the game, before you actually play the game, it's still very much classic UX principles. You think about things like making it frictionless, making it easy to interact with, displaying all the information that's vital to know how your character is doing. A lot of it is about feedback, and specifically instant feedback when you're in a game. But then from the game design bits, that's a whole different world, because then it's about creating friction, creating problems, making the game difficult, right? So that it's not easy to do some things, because that's part of the fun of gameplay, is overcoming these challenges, right? And so a good UX designer for me can move frictionlessly between those two worlds. They understand the game design bit, but they also understand, okay, now I'm in the menu, now I'm in the interface, and now I need to get the player back into this immersive bit and these immersive bits and pieces. And of course, there you have to think a lot about visualization. There was this big debate a while about diegetic versus non-diegetic interfaces. Diegetic pretty much being something that's on the player, that's visible in the game world. If you play Dead Space, you've seen that. It's sort of on the spine of the player. You see the health bars and things like that. You see sort of when you hold the gun, you see how much ammunition is left in the gun and things like that. Far Cry 2 had like a map, so it would actually have like virtual hands and you would see the map. So those are diegetic elements. And then the regular UIs that we know are non-diegetic. So they're just things that are on the space. This is interesting too. If you think about Apple's Vision Pro, all of that is very non-diegetic. It's just like panels in space, right? So we have this AR world, but now we just have these panels, but they should be diegetic, right? They should feel like, so ideally you'd want like an interface that actually projects on your table. So, when I saw these menus and it's like, this just looks like an iPad that's just sitting inside the table, and they were like, oh, but it has a shadow. Well, that's great. But what about if you could actually project it onto the desk, right? And then it is really like a desktop and you could just touch the desk in front of you. That'd be so cool and probably actually possible to do. And to me, that'd be a much better interface in that case. Anyways, so those are the kind of things you got to think about when you're designing for virtual reality and games and these types of things.
I love that. That's such fantastic feedback. And I'd never heard of diegetic versus non-diegetic. So, learning something every day. I love that. Before we sign off, are there any projects that you're working on, or where should people go to support you?
Yeah, so there's two big projects that I sort of have two hats on, which is not recommended for creators. Everyone says just pick one niche. I have two niches. One is the academic side of things, where I teach people how to write academic papers and research papers. I have a course on that. I have a newsletter on that. I have a big Twitter profile on that. But I also teach people on how to do games user research and UX design in games. I'm currently working on a course for that. I have a newsletter for that as well called the Academic Tip Tuesday. And you can find any information about the gaming side of things on acagamic.com. That's acagamic.com.
Cool. I love it. And Lennart posts pretty consistently, I would say, every day on LinkedIn, and he drops some really insightful stuff.
Yeah.
So highly recommend following him there if you don't already. So thank you so much, Lennart, for your time. We so deeply appreciate you and everything you're doing for the UX world. And it's been a pleasure to go through this portfolio with you and have a couple sips along the way.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure doing something with you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.